everyone. Welcome to the YMS Podcast. We are your hosts. I am Colin Mansfield, and I am joined today, as always, by Seve Carnera. You want to say hi, Seve?
Hey, Colin, how are you? Great seeing everybody again. Great seeing you and talking to you again. Thanks a lot for everything.
Couldn't be better, man. Couldn't be better. It's another great week in YMS world, and we've got another fun topic to talk about today. We're going to be discussing the true impact of a yard management software, of a yard management system, the true impact. And a lot of people, I think, when you say true impact or you say results or objectives or these sorts of like corporate words, people's mind jump to dollars and cents, and they jump to time saved and efficiency. And honestly, they should, because that is a huge piece of the pie when it comes to the impact a YMS or a yard management system can have. For those of you that are new to the show, what we do on this podcast is we talk about the logistics industry and supply chain through the lens of yard management. Traditional yard management has been treated as kind of a bit of a black hole in the industry. We think about the life cycle of a trailer and how a lot of times when it gets to a facility, people say, well, we just kind of get it to a dock door, and once it's at a dock, we process it, then we get it off the lot. But it's that whole in-between part of how do we get it to a dock door? How do we plan ahead? How do we better execute yard activities that oftentimes gets left behind by a lot of companies that are looking to increase their operational efficiency. And eventually they figure it out. And what we're trying to do is share knowledge, not shed, share knowledge and some of our experiences implementing yard management systems for companies both large and small who could stand to benefit from what we provide. A little bit about some of the cost savings, because again, this is sort of the area that I think most people kind of jump to when you talk about the true impact. And it's real. It's extremely real. Thinking about our customers who come to us, I've mentioned this before, the iceberg effect, how 20% of what a company is really looking for out of a YMS, the objectives they're looking to solve, that only represents about the top 20% of what they're actually going to get out of the system. The other 80% is hidden beneath the water, so to speak. It's hidden inefficiencies that they don't know because they don't have the visibility to know that they're there. We've seen companies, for example, spending $50,000 or more per year just conducting yard checks in the yard, sending folks out into the yard to validate what's there. Trailers doing temperature checks on reefer units, and it could be well above $50,000, but that's not uncommon. We had a cold storage customer who reduced the time it took to find a trailer in the yard by 40 minutes, right? So instead of having to take off all of their cold weather clothes from this freezer facility and then walk out into the yard and find something, they could just look at a screen. These are the types of benefits that we think of when we think of dollars and cents. But not only that, in the past, we've talked about solutions like the automatic gate, saving customers who have 24/7 employees about $400,000 a year, where they can reallocate that talent elsewhere in the yard, have an automated kiosk solution right there at the gate so drivers can check themselves in and out. We think about providing visibility inside of those trailers, right? And in our system, Yard Management Solutions, we provide what's called X-ray vision. It's an integration with a warehouse management system, or WMS. We had a customer who was spending 6 hours a day, about $50,000 a year, sending employees out into the yard, looking at what had they loaded in it earlier that day or the night before. And just insanity, right? To spend all this time and money when we could just get that from their WMS and show it right there on a computer screen for them when you hover over a trailer. Seve's talked a lot about product protection, right? Not only in terms of protecting assets in your yard, trailers themselves or the product from getting stolen, but also spoilage, and how refrigerated and freezer operations stand a lot to gain by having visibility of their reefer units. I spoke to a company who lost $200,000 worth of finished product on a mistake. They mixed up a scrap metal trailer with a finished product trailer, and the unfortunately finished product went to the scrapyard. Seve, I know he shared some stories. What was the story, Seve, about the saving your bacon?
Yeah.
Right? You had worked with a company that was bringing in pigs. Tell that story real quick.
Yeah.
I love this story.
Yeah. So this organization was bringing in basically pigs on hooves, protein on wheels at that point in a trailer, and they bring them in and then they process those pigs. And a lot of those pigs end up being pork chops and a lot of loads being bacon. Pig is a very popular commodity these days. So as a result of that, about a year after implementing that solution, yeah, I got a call back from the site, said, hey, thanks a lot for saving our bacon, literally, because we had some issue with a reefer out in the yard, and we caught it because of the solution that you implemented for us. So yeah, that's always great to hear. It's always great to hear those stories.
It's incredible to hear those stories, because without a system that is providing that level of visibility, it becomes very easy to lose track of what's in the yard. And that's, unfortunately, too often we don't hear from a company until they've experienced that kind of spoilage or those kinds of losses, and then they'll come and say, oh, now we know we need something. um, I think about one of our customers, Michelin Tire. They were looking to implement YMS to improve jockey efficiencies. That was one of the reasons they came to us. And what they found was that they not only reduced costs associated with those spotters or yard jockeys, yard dogs. Not only did they save money associated with costs like fuel and labor to the order of about $120,000 per year, but that 80% below the surface, they also realized that they had cut CO2 emissions at the facilities that implemented this in half, 50% reduced CO2 emissions. Another big reason they came to us was detention, right? Losing track of trailers and having to pay, for example, driver detention on loads that got lost in the yard, and they didn't realize it until it was too late. They had a facility that saved $2.5 million per year, another site $450,000 per year. We found that implementing YMS will reduce or eliminate driver detention and demurrage by as much as 95%. A lot of our customers report instant savings to 100%. So this is, when we think about the true impact, these are real numbers. I mean, these are customers coming to us sharing what they've gotten out of implementing a software solution to track what's in their yard and to have the visibility and the decision-making data. But here's the thing. I was thinking about this a lot. That is a big reason to make a decision on what to buy a YMS, but it may not be the only impact for implementing a YMS. So I wanted, Seve, to pick your brain a little bit on this. We talk about dollars and cents, and there's case studies out the wazoo, and we can share all kinds of stories all day long about companies that have saved hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. But what else does implementing a yard management system do, maybe that goes beyond even dollars and cents?
Yeah, that's a good point, Colin, because a lot of times there's items that occur, or due to the fact that you have a system in place now, that there's residual savings there that really can't be quantified. So, a good example of that, for example, is your yard drivers. They deal with a lot of different things every single day. Not in addition to moving those trailers from point A to point B, they've either got to listen to the radio, understand what the next move is, if it's a priority move, etc. And some of the things that I've seen, especially with yard drivers in particular, are they absolutely love these types of systems because it makes their job so much more easier. So how does that translate to dollars and cents? It really doesn't, but you do have happier employers or employees at that point, because again, they're working at a yard that's got a modern system to help them with these tasks that's going on in the yard. I've actually spoken to drivers that will state, hey, I work for a 3PL. I go from site to site, and my only request when I'm being asked to go to another site is, do they have a yard management system? Because again, I don't want to go back to the old days of writing stuff with a grease pencil on a windshield, what my next move will be, or what that next priority will be, and then I ended up picking up the wrong trailer because I misheard the trailer number. So those are things that can't be measured, but absolutely bring value to the organization, because if you have happy employees with a system that they love to use, whether it be at the inside the four walls or out in the yard, whether it be at docks or at the gate, it does make those opportunities much better for them, and they enjoy going to work a lot more each morning. And again, it's tough to quantify that, but it is something that you will see in addition to regular dollars and cents.
I'd love it if we could figure out a way to quantify employee happiness and put it on a graph for our customers.
Yep.
But it's a little bit challenging to do that.
Yep.
But you bring up a good point, and we had a customer that came to my mind, Cold Point Logistics, and something that they shared with us was that after implementing the system, it actually doubled their yard productivity because their dock door personnel weren't having to wait as long for drivers to bring trailers to the dock doors. And you go, well, a big piece of that is because they're not doing that hunt and peck around the yard to find what they're looking for. And what came to my mind as we were thinking about the intangibles here, sure, that's productivity, that's measurable, right? We can see how many trailers are moving to dock door. But imagine being that yard driver, to your point, and how frustrating it would have been before a system to have to drive around the yard aimlessly looking for something, or have to have that institutional awareness and knowledge, sort of the, you're here long enough, you'll figure it out. And how challenging would that be for new employees? It's a snowball effect when there's a huge curve to have to overcome, a huge knowledge base to have to learn, where a system like ours, you can really just jump in and start using it and experience that efficiency immediately. So not only from the time savings and the dollar savings, but think about those employees and how much happier it would have made them at their jobs. I think that's a point that gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
On a previous episode, we talked about this, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts through this lens that we're looking at it through this episode. But we've talked about safety, we've talked about compliance in the past, and how having a YMS to help maintain safety standards and help enforce safety protocols can have a huge impact, of course, to the bottom line of an organization. But when it comes to these intangibles, I mean, you've seen it, Seve. What kind of effect does it have on an operation when they know safety is being taken seriously and employees, livelihoods are being put ahead of just, we got to get the trailer to the dock door or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's a great point too, Colin. Because safety is a big, big portion of it, and you're right. We've covered this before in other podcasts that we've had. But at the end of the day, those employees feel much better when their employers take safety seriously. It's amazing how many sites I've been to that sometimes that can get overlooked. And when you have that type of situation in any type of operation, that does cause some pause for those employees that are working there and think to themselves, you know what? Does my employer really take safety as a critical issue, or is this something that's just a afterthought? But yeah, without a doubt, safety included in this again is something that can't be measured, but is obviously something that will also eventually you could have dollars and cents associated to it, but many times if there's no accidents, there's no dollars and cents to tie to it. So there's a bit of a gap there from a standpoint of understanding what that quantified number would be. But it does bring up a good point, based on what you just said.
And again, it's that same, irony of suddenly when a safety incident occurs, organizations are of course going to go look at how can we prevent this from happening ever again.
Yeah.
But why wait? Why wait to figure out what that cost is?
Yeah.
Especially when people's lives are at stake potentially. I was thinking about this. I was on site with one of our customers last year, and this was before they had gone live with the yard management system. And I was learning their operation, going around meeting people, and there was a individual whose role at that time, before implementing a system, whose role was they were sort of like the influx point where all of the communication went into so that she could hand out the moves to yard drivers. And this organization was a large operation, about 30 yard drivers a shift or so. And this poor gal, I remember standing behind her. I mean, she was great at her job. Don't get me wrong. She was phenomenal at her job, doing her absolute best. But I remember standing behind her and watching her. And this was, 2:00 on a Thursday or whatever it was. And she's just sitting there double-handed radios and phones, and it's ringing off the hook, and she's got her computer screen in front of her. She's typing, and she's doing this, and just a lot of stress, you could just tell, like, wow. And this is every day.
Yeah.
This was not like peak season or something. This was an everyday scenario. What if she gets sick? What if she, God forbid, had some sort of accident happens? Now you have to train somebody on this crazy role. And I was just thinking about how after implementing the system, she still works for that organization. I remember going on site afterwards and being like, hey, how much easier is your life now? And she was like, oh, this is amazing. and how, decentralizing that command and control. So you don't have to have one central point of failure, but instead everybody's taking responsibility equally. Everybody's doing their job, and you have a system that's divvying out these tasks and these yard moves rather than an individual. And yeah, of course, that's going to make operations more efficient, but it's also going to make a huge difference in the lives of your employees. And to your point, although that's hard to quantify, less turnover, employees that are happier showing up to work. Everybody wants to be happy when they come to work, and nobody wants to, dread going into the office.
Yeah.
Certainly, I don't think there's an employer out there that wants their office to be the one that sucks to work at.
Yeah.
So this is all hard to sell, right? This is not something you bring up in a demo necessarily.
No.
Maybe we should figure out a way to do it, but it's hard to sell, but it is nevertheless a huge benefit to having a system like this. Let's talk a little bit about that from a decentralization standpoint and transparency. Seve, what have you seen in your many years? You've got over 10 years of experience in this industry across a wide variety of operation types. I know that you've got some stories about lack of accountability moving to accountability. What does that look like, and how does a yard management system help not only employees but also management when it comes to this idea of accountability in the yard?
Yeah, that's a great point, Colin, because any good YMS system will monitor and track activities that are going on in the yard. It will also track who and when stuff was done as well too. And to your point, it brings up a good opportunity for training for some employees. And I'll use the word training here. To make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And now that you have a system in place, it's a lot easier to understand, where things may be going awry or where things are going well. We've spoken a lot about this as well too. The ability to run reports, be able to see, for example, how many moves a particular driver has done compared to another. But to your point, you keep people accountable through the system in this manner. And I will share with you, that's one of the biggest questions we get on a regular basis is, can I go back and audit what has transpired over the life of that trader in that yard for a specific period of time? And, it's great to be able to say yes, because I know in the back of their minds what they're thinking is that this is how I can make operations more efficient, number one. And number two, I can also use this as a training point for those that may not be performing as well as they should be. And then we can have those conversations and, try and clear out some of those operations and make them even smoother.
No, it's a point well taken. And being able to know that you don't have to, when it comes time to do that audit, you're not sifting through piles of paperwork. You're not looking at time cards, and you're not having to, go to 3 different computer systems and 5 different spreadsheets to figure out what happened, but it's all in one place,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
from a management perspective, I know I've, again, been on site talking with organizations and teaching them the power of the reporting piece of it, and it clicks, and they go, oh, wow, I can have instant feedback about my employees' activities without having to, hold a staff meeting and ask who did what, but instead I've got it all at my fingertips. So from a employee perspective, we talked about better place to work, love coming to work, enjoying your job and being able to do your job as effectively as possible, feeling like you're making an impact. From a employer standpoint, the ability to manage your employees effectively, not playing the finger pointing game or the guessing game, but knowing exactly who's doing what, and celebrate high performers and identify who needs additional training, right? Let's talk about it as well through the realm of taking a step back from just individuals, but looking at it from the perspective of these. A lot of companies have a variety of systems. And I remember a customer of ours sharing with me that they had a system worked well, except it hadn't been updated in 15 years. And so they didn't know if it would ever be updated, and how unfortunate that was, right? There, a lot of customers, a lot of operations out there will have a variety of different software systems. And having a yard management system that can plug into those ends up having a tremendous impact on those individuals who are having to use those different systems. We think about integration and how you've shared this with me, Seve, how the gate, that can really be a make or break situation for a facility, how effective they are at tracking and checking in trailers at the gate, and that first move that happens, bringing that trailer in, incredibly important. And if you're a gate employee having to, use a TMS system to indicate that a trailer has arrived, and then have to use a spreadsheet to put into another system, and then also, by the way, we just bought this really cool shiny YMS, let's put it in there too, and they're having to do 3 or 4 things, not a great experience. So I wanted to bring this up as well, how the best yard management systems, the best software, period, but looking at it through our lens, yard management systems have to be able to integrate really, really well. What does that, talk to me a little bit from your perspective, Seve, what kind of power does that have when systems are integrated seamlessly for that end user?
Yeah, and it makes a big difference, Colin, because to your point, you're not having to work in multiple systems. That integration piece could include, for example, someone inside of the 4 walls using the WMS system to request a move request. They know that that trailer's arrived due to the fact that it was arrived at the gate. So that information gets shared with the WMS, and the WMS is aware of that. So that's one touch point there. But then again, those users inside the 4 walls don't have to go over to the YMS to create that move request. They can still do it in the WMS. That move then gets moved over to the YMS, and then everything's happy. The last thing, and the thing that I've always told customers as well too, and I've shared with them, is that what we're trying to avoid is having your users having to use multiple systems. We don't want users having to do dual entry into multiple systems, repeat that process over and over again. It's best if they do it once, and then that data gets shared among system that needs it. Whichever data needs to consume it can. And if you need to push that data in one direction, or it's bi-directional type of communication between systems, it makes life so much easier and seamless for those individuals using those systems. Whether it be a move request in the YMS or a move request in the WMS, you still come out with the same output, and you only have users actually using one system instead of having to use multiple systems to make those same updates or changes.
Well, it's I always say we're agnostic. At the end of the day, we're in the business of solving customer problems. Whether they choose to use our system or another system, we want to make sure that that problem is solved.
Yep.
And I don't think there's a good system out there that, in fact, if you find a system and you're looking for any sort of software system and they're not able to integrate effectively, and there's a level of pride there, oh no, you need to use our system, I would recommend steering clear.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, any good provider worth their salt is going to want to solve your problems regardless of what that looks like. Make it as easy as possible for the end user. We identified a part of our push this year. I think last episode, 2 episodes ago, we had done a survey amongst attendees to Modex, which was 2024 big trade show, and it was the biggest version of that trade show ever this year. And as a part of that, we did a survey. We've also internally discussed with our customers and with new leads coming our way, what are some of the big business challenges that you're facing? And that episode was really good. We dove deep into 5 of those. We've actually got a total of 10. And the interesting thing about this, top 10 business challenges, some of these are dollars and cents, right? I look at this, and maybe we can have our team put this up on the visual so you can see it if you're watching this podcast. Detention fees, right? That's a clear dollars and cents. Excessive time locating trailers, right? Easy win there. Product loss. We talked about that, product protection and safety risks. Excessive CO2 emissions. These are all things you can quantify and track. But there's also things on here that get at sort of the point of this episode, which is what is the true impact of implementing a YMS? Things like reactive problem solving, right? How frustrating is it when either you, who is running your facility, is reacting instead of being able to plan ahead? And from an employee perspective, equally, if not more so frustrating to know that leadership could be fixing problems in advance, but are having to react because they don't have good visibility. That's a big one. Overloaded inboxes. This is one that a lot of people resonate with.
Yeah.
right? They're yeah, we've got communication, but it's all emails, and I've got 10,000 of them, and I can never get to the bottom, and I'm just tearing my hair out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That issue I mentioned earlier, double handing the radio, similar kind of thing. And so being able to automate a lot of that communication, or go to a screen and just find what you're looking for, so you don't have to constantly be doing the back and forth. And even things like gate bottlenecks. I mentioned the gate earlier, but how stressful it is for an employee to look out their window at the gate and see 20 assets, 20 trailers, 20 trucks, and 20 mad drivers sitting there waiting to get into the facility. And if that's your job every day, that's got to be hard, man. I have a lot of empathy and a lot of respect for these employees who put up with this kind of operational flow daily.
Yeah.
So a big part of why we do what we do, it's to save companies money, obviously. Like that's a big part of it. It's to solve problems. It's to increase productivity. But for me, and I know this is true for you as well, Seve, when you see that light bulb moment in that individual's eyes, that yard driver or that yard check employee or that gate employee who goes, oh my gosh, this is going to make my job so much easier. That makes it all worth it. And to me, that is the true impact of implementing a yard management system. So before we close out, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right, Colin. It's always great to go to a facility after you've started a go live or you've just implemented the solution, or you go back and visit 6 months later, like you mentioned earlier, and you have folks that are just, stating things that are obvious to you, but it makes you feel good about the job that you've done and the service that you can provide other people, especially in this industry. Because you're right, I have a lot of respect for these individuals. My father was a diesel mechanic as well too, so I understand, the ins and outs of those daily types of operations and those types of scenarios. But it's great when you hear back feedback from individuals that, hey, I don't know how he ever did it without the solution. It feels like we've come in from the Stone Age and we are now, working in, 2050 instead of, 2024. So it's always great to hear those stories. It's always great when customers share that with you. And like I mentioned earlier, it's great when they call you a year later and thank you for stuff that you've done that, you've pretty much forgotten about that customer and we'll move on to the next one. And it's great to hear back from them and get that feedback, because nothing, as far as I'm concerned, could be more satisfying from a professional standpoint when you have that feedback from customers telling you how much they, enjoyed working with you, number one, and then secondly, enjoy the solution that you've put in for them as well too.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the best feeling in the world, and it makes this the best, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best jobs in the world, is being able to solve those problems and help people. Couldn't ask for anything better than that. If you are a company and you are listening to this or watching this video, first off, thank you, because it's awesome to have people participating.
Yeah.
And you want to learn more about yard management in general, about a yard management system, we've got several other episodes you can check out of this show, but you can also go to our website, yardmanagementsolutions.com. There's a button on the top right that says, I think it says schedule a demo. You can click on that and you can get in touch with our team. We'd love to show you the system. We'd love to learn more about your operation. If you're an employee that works at an operation, you say, man, I would love it if we could have something like this, reach out. We'll do what we can to get you the information you need and get in touch with the right people. We're happy to help. And if you're a provider and you heard that WMS TMS integration section, you go, heck yeah, let's do it, man. Get in touch with us. Love to establish partnerships and integrations with existing tools that approach problem solving like we do. And finally, if you'd love to come on the show, please hit me up. Me and Seve are on LinkedIn. You can add us there, connect with us. More than happy to have other guests on the show here in the future. For now, Seve, thank you as always, sir. I hope that you have a great rest of your week. And for those listening, thank you very much. We'll see you again next time.
Take care.